Hello students, as in the previous video we discussed about some introduction of principles of inheritance and variation, that is our chapter genetics. Now we will discuss Mendel's law of inheritance. Prior to this we will discuss about Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel conducted hybridization experiments on garden peas for 7 years and from this experiment he proposed the law of inheritance in living organism. Mendel was only the scientist that he used this investigation first time, and his investigation was based on statistical and mathematical logics and were applied in biology. So for his experiment he selected garden pea as a sample of experiment because there is easy availability on large scale, and this garden pea is available with distinct characteristics. They are self pollinated and can be cross pollinated easily. So Mendel selected 14 true breeding pea plant varieties, as here we consider that pairs which were similar except for one character with contrasting traits. So here we will define the terms true breeding traits. Before this we will discuss the characters. The Mendel takes 7 characters, example like seed shape, seed color, flower color, pod shape, pod color, flower position, stem height. The Mendel studied these 7 pairs of contrasting traits in pea plant. So if we discuss about Mendel investigation characters in the garden pea plant that were manifested as two opposite traits. Like if we discuss about tall and dwarf plants, so these are the two opposite traits, yellow or green seeds. So the this allowed him to set up a basic framework, rules governing inheritance, which is expanded on by later scientists, and all the diverse natural observations and the complexity inherent in them. So now we can see that Mendel selected 14 true breeding pea plant varieties as pairs which were similar except for one character with contrasting traits. So as we discuss the 7 characters, in which two contrasting traits are dominant traits and recessive traits. Now we will discuss the term that is trait. Trait is the specific characteristic of an organism, and it can be determined by genes or environment, and more commonly by interaction. Regarding to this, we also know about true breeding definition. It is a breeding line which shows stable traits inheritance, and it shows expression for several generations. Now we will discuss how Mendel experiments procedure goes on. Generation by generation he experimented, and he used garden pea as we discussed now. He observed one trait or character at a time, means for example we can say he used the one character that tall and dwarf pea. So inheritance of one gene, he crossed tall and dwarf pea plants. So if Mendel hybridized plants with alternate forms of a single trait, then he produced the crosses and he developed the plants into first progeny, and that progeny is known as FN generation. Then again he self-pollinated the tall plants that were known as FN generation plants, that is filial. F terms relates to filial, and next generation was known as F2 generation. So in later experiments Mendel also crossed pea plants with two contrasting characters, and such type of cross is known as dihybrid cross. As now in further videos we will discuss how monohybrid cross is occurring and how dihybrid cross is occurring. So what Mendel observed in his experiment, he observed that the pair of traits found that F1 often resembled either one of its parents, and traits of the other was not found in them. तो एक ट्रेट तो हमें मिलेगा, जैसे हम एग्जांपल ले लें टॉल एंड ड्वार्फ का. ओके, तो व्हेन ही crossed and he found the F1 generation, when he got the F1 generation, he found, for example, from tall and dwarf he found only tall type of progenies. So, if we consider F2 generation, he found some of the offsprings were dwarf. Now, the recessive trait now passed on, and the character which were not seen in F1 generation now expressed in F1 generation. So, we can say that the recessive type of characters were get hidden in F1 generation and those were get expressed in F2 generation. Now when we do the crosses, we will discuss ki how, in what ratio the recessive and dominant forms are occurring, and on basis of this we will discuss our monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross, and regarding to this we will discuss our phenotypic and genotypic ratios, and this accordingly we will discuss ki how Mendel showing the crosses and showing the pattern of inheritance.